do one more.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is BJ from Real World Guitar, and today I want to talk to you about some of my favorite arpeggios. Not favorite in terms of quality, like, oh man, I really love that major 7 sharp 11 thing you're doing, but favorite in terms of structure and the way that they lay out on the fretboard. Today's lesson is going to assume that you maybe have a moderate amount of theory knowledge. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, but you should certainly know what an arpeggio is, and specifically some of the basic extended chords and basic extended arpeggios, such as major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, and half diminished or minor 7 flat 5. If all that stuff makes sense to you, let's jump in and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So what I like so much about these particular arpeggios that I'm going to show you today is that they're what I call 5-string arpeggios, or they have their root on the A string as opposed to the E. A lot of what we learn on guitar, at least in the beginning, we learn with a root on the E string, which is great. It kind of gives us a place to start and it gives us a good roadmap. But there are certainly arpeggios all over the neck. They start in different places, and some of the ones that I find that I use most often are these ones that start on the A string. What's cool and particularly unique about these 4 that we're going to look at is they all follow the same structure, meaning they're going to have 2 notes on the A string, 1 on the D, 2 notes on the G string, 1 on the B, and then 2 notes on the high E string. So there's almost this symmetrical thing going on. You've got 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 in terms of how the notes are actually laid out. So let's start with the D major 7. We'll start kind of right in the middle of the fretboard here. And for reference, that's a D major chord, so it's going to have that kind of tonality. And we're going to be starting on the 5th fret of the A string, which is the D note. That's our root. And again, for this one, for our major 7, you're going to have 2 notes on the A string, 5th fret and 9th fret. 1 note on the D string, the 7th fret. 2 notes on the G, the 6th and the 7. 1 note on the B string, the 7th fret. And then 2 notes on the high E, the 5th and the 9th fret. Now, as far as the arpeggio is concerned, like I said, this is a D major 7 arpeggio, but for any major 7 arpeggio, we're playing the 1, 3, 5, and 7, the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th note from a major scale. So if we were in D major, in this case, it's D, F sharp, A, C sharp, and then it repeats. D, F sharp, A, C sharp. So that's our first shape, the D major 7. Now, what's so great about these particular arpeggios is if you know your theory, you understand how they're laid out, they're all connected and you can change from one to the next by moving only 1 note. So if we want to go to a D dominant 7 instead, now the only thing that changes is we're going to have what's called a flat 7. Our 7th note moves back 1 fret or 1 fret lower. So now instead of 1, 3, 5, 7, we've got 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Meaning we'll have the same exact notes to start, or at least our first 3, the triad. 5th fret and 9th fret on the A, 7th fret on the D, and now 5th fret for our flat 7 on the G, and then 7th fret on the G, 7th fret on the B string, and then 5th fret up to 8th fret is there's our flat 7 again on the high E string. So the only 2 frets that are changing are the 6th fret on the G moves back to the 5, and what was the 9th fret on the high E moves back to the 8. And in both of those cases, that's the C sharp note just moving back to a C, or the 7 moving to a flat 7. So now our dominant 7, or our D dominant 7 arpeggio, that kind of sound. Now from here, we can go to a D minor 7 by just moving our 3rd down. So in the same way that we took the 7 and made it flat, now we're going to take the 3rd degree of the scale and make that flat. So in this case, we're going to be moving from an F sharp to an F. So taking our third and making it a flat 3. What that's going to look like is now 5 and 8 on the A string, 7 on the D, 5 and 7 on the G, 6 on the B string, and then 5 and 8 on the high E string. And that's our D minor 7 arpeggio. And then to finish it up, our last one, it's a little funkier sounding, maybe it takes a little longer to get your ear used to hearing this one, but a D minor 7 flat 5, or sometimes people call it a D half diminished. So it's just got that flat 5 gives it a little bit of a darker sound, but the name of the chord, or the name of the arpeggio, literally describes what's happening. So it's a D minor 7 flat 5. So we're just taking the D minor 7 that we had, and now we're going to flat the 5th. So now, if we've been following along, our major 7 was 1, 3, 5, and 7. Our dominant 7 is 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Our minor 7 adds the flat 3, so 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. And now finally we're going to take that and also flat the 5th. So we've got 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but on guitar, it's like on the fretboard, it's actually very logical and it makes a lot of sense. You can literally see these notes just move 1 fret at a time. So now we've still got 5 and 8, the D and the F on the A string. Then here's our flat 5. So we had an A note, and we're moving that back essentially to an A flat or G sharp, whatever you particularly like to call it. But then we've got 5 and 7, so the C back to the D on the G string. So 5, 8 on the A, 6 on the D, 5 and 7 on the G, 6 on the B, and then 4 and 8 on the high E string, because we've got that flat 5 in there again. Our 5th used to be actually on the 5th fret. Now the flat 5 drops back to the 4th fret on the high E. So what's a little bit tricky about this one is all the other ones essentially were what I call in the same position or in line with your first finger. This one, because of that flat 5 on the high E string, we've got to do this little stretch back to the 4th fret when we get there. Not terribly difficult, but you just got to watch out for it. So there's your minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished arpeggio. So I wasn't kidding when I said these are my favorite arpeggios. I really, really like the way that they lay out under my fingers on the fretboard. I find these to be the most comfortable for me personally. Now, everybody's different, so you may not love them, but it's definitely worth giving them a try. For me, where I play with a thumb pick or pick and fingers, do a lot of hybrid stuff, that works out great for these particular style of arpeggios for licks like those kind of things, like descending in groups of 3 and groups of 4, stuff where you can do some string skipping, those kind of things. This is all right in that, so I'm playing a D minor 7 right now, but it's all contained right in that arpeggio. So there's lots of things we can do. That might be for another video, but definitely check them out. Play the D major 7, D dominant 7, D minor 7, and D minor 7 flat 5. Run the arpeggios. Once you know the basic shapes, then you can move them up and down the A string to different roots, get to know them all over the place. You can harmonize them throughout a key or throughout a major scale. There's a lot you can do. But for today, just work on getting those 4 shapes down. Let me know what you think. Feel free to leave a comment or question if there's anything that didn't make any sense. And I'll see you guys out there next time. Have a good one.